College is expensive, very expensive, and many folks, many families can't afford the ever-rising cost and the astounding level of debt they'll be facing to try to pay for it. Here with expert advice on how to handle it all, it's personal finance expert Larry Wingett, David Bach, the Vice Chairman of Edelman Financial Services, and Rob Franek, the Senior Vice President at the Princeton Review. Rob, I'm starting with you. So look, here's what we got to tell people tonight, right? What is the best advice? I mean, we're looking at $1.2 trillion in debt for students out there and their parents. It's ridiculous.
It is, however, and we've talked about this in the past as well, Jerry, college is worth it, and it is expensive to not go to college. And we know that there's heart-stoppingly expensive sticker prices for both public and private schools, but the investment pays off.
The investment pays off. Wait a minute, Larry Wingett, does the investment pay off, my friend? Is it worth it?
It can be worth it, but the investment does not always pay off, depending on what you get a degree in, and sometimes it takes way too long for that to pay off. I think the problem is that we as a society see college as the solution for all kids. It isn't. Trade schools, first of all, you get out sooner and it doesn't cost you as much, and there are a lot of blue-collar jobs paying a whole lot more than a lot of white-collar jobs right now.
Can I tell you how much my plumber makes? Can I tell you how much my plumber makes? It's
exactly.
Ridiculous. David Bach, what do you say? You know how much parents are suffering with this.
It's so difficult. I mean, right now, look, I've got a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old, so I'm having to save for college.
You're
screwed. Did you just say that? Here's what you need to do. It's really simple. We were talking about paying yourself first in the last segment. Here you got to pay your kids first. And the way you do that, the #1 way to save for college is a 529 plan. Unfortunately, 66% of Americans have never heard of this plan. 529 plans are the best way to save for college. It's a tax-deferred savings account. You can get up to $200,000 in these accounts. Money comes out tax-free.
It's a great thing.
Use it for education.
It is a great thing.
Happens to be today's 529 day, believe it or not. So it's interesting that we're doing
it all comes together.
It all comes together.
All right, I want to give my best advice.
Yes.
Okay? If you're sitting out there tonight, you've got kids going into school right now, and you're thinking, holy crap, how am I going to pay for this? Here's what you do. You tell little Johnny or Joanna, you say, it's only 4 years. It's not 5 years. It's not 6 years, because only 36% of kids graduate in 4 years. So look, at the end of the day, this costs you nothing to say, we're turning off the taps in 4 years. Rob?
Yeah, I completely agree. And when we think about strategies and in addressing why college is so expensive, we can look at it through that lens, right? It's not just taking kids 4 years. It's an average of 6 years to graduate from college. It's true, but you can lay down the law and be very direct and pragmatic and saying, use all the resources you have in 4 years, including career services. Make sure you're getting internships and experiential learning when you're in school, that you're going to get a job after.
Hey, Larry, a lot of this is about personal responsibility, in my view, and you can't take underwater basket weaving, and you can't take the history of the Chinese people. I'm sorry, that may not sound very nice. You have to do something that's going to have a payoff, right?
Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with telling your kids, Jerry, that they are responsible for a portion of the cost. There's nothing wrong with telling your high school kids to work during the summer and save their own money. You don't owe your kids that college education. If you can afford it, that's fine, but kids need to understand not all parents can afford it, and they need to contribute, which also means they work hard while they're in school, so maybe they'll qualify for some kind of a scholarship.
Scholarship, free money, that's one of my favorite things. David Bach, though, I think Mom and Dad feel like, I've got to do this, right?
I think, look, parents feel like they need to do this, but I think here's what smart parents are doing. This is what we're advising our clients. Look at the ROI on your investment. What that specifically means is this. Colleges now are having to show what kind of job are these kids getting out of school and what are they earning? And they're starting to compare these colleges. So what I would do is, when I'm going to write that check, I'd look at what kind of money are these kids making when they graduate? And one thing I also consider doing is looking at community colleges for the first 2 years, because you can really reduce the cost of an education by putting the first 2 years, get all your general education classes out of the way, really inexpensively, then switch to a 4-year school, then you're paying full price for the 3rd and 4th year.
Let's talk about the dirty little secret that nobody likes to talk about, even Rob Franek, which is this. You can negotiate the price. You can. These colleges are in trouble. There aren't enough kids out there to fill up the classrooms. They need to get you in the front door. You can say, I love this, but I have 5 offers from other schools that are competitive with you, and I need to pay less.
Absolutely. I think you're very right. Schools, the majority of schools that our students are looking at are tuition driven, which means you are a needed consumer for that school. truth is 70% of all students are going to get some financial aid, but you can use that to the best of your ability from both a financial side of the fence as well as from a scholarship just based on academic merit.
You can leverage these guys.
You can leverage them, and you should be.
Larry, one of the problems that I see in this, and I'll tell you, it's scary. You heard about Sweetbriar College down in Virginia. There are going to be schools closing because they've so mismanaged their resources. They built the climbing wall. They have the new student union. You know, you have the sushi bar in the lunchroom. It's out of control, and I think over the coming years you're going to see more and more and more of these schools close. What do you say?
Well, I think that's right. And Jerry you and I have talked before about colleges in Texas and how they're starting to give a different kind of alternative education to a lot of kids so you can test out a lot of the early stuff. I think we'll see that growing a whole lot more in the future and a lot more catering to alternative students. And I do agree with what you said. Everything is negotiable. That's a life lesson. Everything is negotiable.
And quickly before we go, I want to go around the table here. I'm asking the question, online learning. Would you put your kids into an online school? Rob, you first.
Without question. And here's the thing. It's not just available for undergrad students. We do a best online MBA list just came out a couple of weeks ago. Students are doing it on the B school level as well.
All right. Remember, you can disagree if you want to, David.
Well, I'm going to agree. I think online learning is the future. And what you're going to see is online learning is going to change the entire system for education because it's going to ultimately reduce the cost substantially because it's going to make these schools way more competitive. And that's going to put a lot of these schools out of business as online learning becomes a bigger part of it.
Larry, thumbs up or thumbs down? We got to go.
Thumbs up with a thumbprint to make sure you're doing the work.
Well done.
Rob, Larry, and David, stick around.